According to all of the Abrahamic religions, which include Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, the fall of man refers to humanity's transition from a state of innocent bliss to a state of sinful understanding. The cause of this fall was disobedience to the deity God. The result of it was that humankind could not eat from the tree of life and thus gain immortality. Men and women could no longer walk in the sight of God or live in God's paradise, the Garden of Eden. Thus the fall represents the introduction of sin into the world and the punishment of mortal death to ensue in the human being. Based on the legend, a supernatural male deity by the name of God first created man out of dust, supposedly in his own image and likeness. Why he created men first seems to establish a speculative deduction that man is not only unique but special. Otherwise, men would have been created alongside women. However, the creation of woman holds its own meaning in this biblical account, implying that it's not good for man to be alone. God creates every animal species on earth to find the man that he created a helper. God then gives men dominion over all animals and plants on earth. The man which God then names Adam is given the power to name every animal. Adam is not satisfied with the animals that God has created for him, so God then creates a woman out of the rib of Adam. Thus the woman was second-rate to be created, and a second option to be of help in the world. Knowing that Adam was created from the dust of the ground, and the woman out of Adam's rib, implies patriarchy. For Adam has said, after the creation of the woman,
"This is the bone of my bone, and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man."
knowing that the woman was created for the essential purpose to fit help for Adam, after Adam himself is first given the choice of the other animals, implies dependence, subordination, and inferiority for the woman's role. According to the story, a talking and walking serpent seduces the woman to eat of fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The woman tells the serpent that she has been warned not to eat the fruit, fully knowing that God himself did not warn the woman, but instead had Adam deliver the message to her. This implies that God did not find it important to relay a commandment to a woman. The serpent then begins to deceive the woman, implying that she would be greater than God if she ate the fruit. Seduced and beguiled, the woman eats of the fruit and then gives it to Adam, who was not only by her side the whole time as the serpent approached the woman to tempt her into a grave sin, but did not say anything in the deception that the serpent was crafting. Why the serpent picked a woman to plan his deception had its symbolic or literal meaning that implies weakness, frailty, naivety, and inferior character for a female to do that which is wrong. Next, God looks for Adam and the woman in the garden, in which the two were hiding because of the shame of their nakedness. God then goes to Adam first, the head of the two, and asks Adam if he disobeyed the only commandment he left him. Adam then replies in blame,
"The woman you have gave to be with me, she gave me of the fruit of the tree, and I ate."
Not admitting the guilt up front, Adam puts himself in the position of facing less of a punishment than what the serpent and the woman were going to face for their sin of disobedience. God then goes on first to punish the serpent from walking and supposedly talking of her again. Next, he punishes the woman to face greater pain in delivering children, and implies that her desire shall be for her husband, and he shall rule over her. God then finishes his castigation with Adam, ordering him to lead the expulsion out of paradise for all humanity to work, toil, suffer, and then die. After they receive their punishment, and before they walk out of paradise, Adam then goes out of his way to name the woman
Eve.
Before the original sin, Adam gives the woman the name of her gender, and then after, he gives the woman her name. This implies subjection and subjugation. In conclusion, the fall of man by woman becomes the chief motif of life. The whole foundation of at least the Christian religion rests on women's temptation and man's fall, hence the necessity of a male redeemer and a plan of salvation. As the chief cause of this dire calamity, women's degradation and subordination is made a necessity.
But I'm going for that in some, like, not necessarily. Why? Okay. Be careful. Whee! Look at you. Well, I stopped my full-time job about 2 months ago to stay at home and be a full-time mom, and you know, I came to that conclusion because, you know, I was dropping my child off at daycare and they were actually seeing my son more than I was, and it was very important to me that my child be raised with my values and, you know, really feel like his mom is his caretaker. So that's the decision that my husband and I made, and we felt like it was best for our family.
All right.
And so, you know, I had the Moms Club brought to my attention, and I thought, well, hey, you know, that's a perfect opportunity for my child to get some socialization and to be able to, you know, have support from other moms, you know, and just day-to-day routines and stuff. And
MOMS stands for Moms Offering Moms Support. The Moms Club is actually an international organization. There's chapters all over the place. It was started out in California by a stay-at-home mother who wanted to meet with other stay-at-home mothers, and basically they just got together and formed a support group. They're all basically the same. We meet together and have play groups and park days and do different activities like tours of ice cream shops and, you know, movie days and fun things like that. We're for moms. We do everything with the children, but we're really for the moms. It's a support group so that you can talk to other moms, know that you're not alone in what you're going through as your children grow. You know, you've got more experienced moms that are there that can tell the ones who have their first child, you know, that, you know, it's okay that they're teething, it's okay, you know, this is normal. You know, don't worry, they'll get potty training, you know, that sort of thing.
Well, I think, I know my husband appreciates what I do, and I know he sees it as very difficult work. But I think the fact that we don't have a monetary value, that there isn't, you know, we don't have a placement, you know, this is how much money that you would earn for this. It just somehow, I don't know, just makes it seem like it's less of a work.
Very good point.
And that, you know, but then you've got the traditional roles, and saying that that's what we're supposed to be doing.
Exactly.
So,
Very good point. Very good point.
I don't know, the concept that the woman's job is in the house. So, you know, I don't know.
And I know a lot of women don't have the support from their husbands, but I'm very fortunate that my husband fully knows everything that I'm going through, those 8 or 12 hours that I'm home by myself. I mean, he knows that I'm referee, cook, laundry, you know, do everything. It's not like we're sitting home and relaxing, doing nothing all day long.
anytime that you make a huge decision in your life like that, you're going to have a lot of pros and cons, and you know, quitting my job came with, you know, I felt like a lot of, you know, judgment, some criticism, and definitely a lot of sacrifice, but it was totally worth it. You know, you have to do what's best for you and best for your family, and, you know, sometimes having, you know, unlimited funds in your bank account isn't necessarily the best thing, you know. When you have a child, you're, I was always real career focused, you know, but when I had my child, definitely my goals and my aspirations in life changed a lot.
That is the best part about it. That's what I like, and just take a break, you know, helping each other, each one. You know, I'm new to this club, but the other club is basically, you know, the same. You know, the same thing. Like, you needed to go, just be alone for a moment. Hey, let me take your kids out. You can relax, you know, by yourself, and you know, do whatever you need to do, or let's help each other clean the house, and you know, because it gets kind of boring sometimes when you're by yourself. But that's the reason this Moms Club is, because you basically, it is, I don't know if you know what it stands for, it's Moms Offering Moms Support. So it is a club for moms, not for kids. You know, so it's like kind of like trying to create the same feeling as of like your extended family or immediate family was supposed to give you. And since everybody's so, you know, somewhere else, then, you know,
Other career women, most of them just say, "Oh, I couldn't do that," or I wouldn't want to do that. So I mean, it's a choice that each individual person has to make. Because a lot of people understand these days, that you are working. Just because you're not, actually in a job earning money, you're still at home. You are working. And so most people do understand that these days.
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to going back eventually. Yeah. But I'm not missing out on my kids' childhood right now. So.
Well, it's not cost effective.
Yeah.
I mean, we see more studies today that say, it costs more than that second income to actually put a child into daycare.
I do have 2 bachelor's degrees, but I have not worked in my field yet because I chose to go ahead and stay home with my children. And when they get older, then I will probably pursue my career. There are several women in our chapter that, did leave careers to stay home with their children.
Well, I know from the studies that once you go back to work, you won't get the money or the status that you would have had if you had never left the workforce. As far as going back, I'm thinking once both of my kids are in elementary school.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking. Elementary school. Yes. Okay, go play with her then. That's wonderful. Okay.
And and then I'm also looking at a career that will work around my kids.
Yeah.
Something that will coincide with their schedule. So I don't know. We'll have to see.
Your children are young for a short time, and it's worth it to stay home with them those few years, and then pick up your career later on. Your career's not going to go away just because you choose to stay home. Maybe your position in a certain company might not be there, when you decide to go back, but another door will open.
I do also feel that there is this great divide between working mothers and stay-at-home mothers, which I think the media has really fed into. And just play it up. You're either a working mother and you can do it all, or then you get the guilt of you're not there, so you've got to have that quality time.
Exactly.
Quality time, all these keywords and catchphrases that they throw out at you. And and then the stay-at-home moms, we are diminished because we are staying at home. You don't want to be in the workforce, you don't feel like you've got something to contribute. And so, I feel like we're pitted against each other when that shouldn't be the case. We should be supporting everyone.
Because of the fact that, there is so much emphasis put on, your longevity in the workforce, and you're going from one level in the workforce to the next and climbing the corporate ladder, or how you should say it. But, the media, I think, really, beckons to that, and I think that it's in a lot of ways very disheartening and very sad. It's very important still. I mean, we have to have that in order for our society to function as it does. But at the same time, if you didn't have people who were willing to take care of children, whether it be in a daycare or what have you, or those unglorified jobs, or even stay-at-home parents who, are not in any way, glorified or, monetarily, compensated for that. It's definitely, men are raised or have been, in our society to be, the breadwinners and the people who really, take charge and things like that. And I think that, a lot of times you do hear about men who stay at home and they're even criticized for it.
Yeah. I think most of the fathers also feel that it is important for the mom to be home with the children. While it is a sacrifice, to go down to one income, most families are willing to work together and cut corners and we've all learned how to budget well, and maybe not go out to eat as often, and shop the consignment shops or sales for kids' clothes and that sort of thing.
As a force, mothers, women, we are the largest group in this country, and if we could ever get it together and get the basic issues down, we really could be a driving force. We could really make things happen. So I was just talking with a friend. I was thinking about it. I haven't had very many women's studies classes. I don't know that much about feminist movement, and I almost feel like I've let my gender down. You know, we're fighting for equality, and here we are now. What have we gotten? We don't have a good daycare across the board. You know, lower income families, I mean, what do? They don't have a choice. Luckily, we have this choice. And so many people
that's
don't.
right. So many people don't.
And that's what I hate to see.
See, the thing is, when I was growing up, I felt it. Meaning, I thought I really need to be a feminist because I was raised, you know, in a Hispanic environment, and it is that way. You know, men can have fun while the girls have to cook, clean, do everything. And you're like, but I did marry a European guy. He's raised totally different. He's more liberal in the part of like he gives the same rights, put it that way. So I don't feel the need to be a feminist right now. But I saw it in my earlier years. Yes, I did feel it, and I'm like, I need to do something. Women, me too.
I think it was very constructive. I think it was liberating. Yet, I think we hit in the late 70s, early 80s, or maybe in the late 80s, we lost the constructive part of it. And now it seems that it's all about sexual freedom. We've lost the drive of, you know, equal opportunity. I think that's just kind of fizzled out. And I really feel like women are much more sexist objects than they ever were before.
I'm not necessarily what I would call a feminist. I once again have strong family roots. You know, I think that a lot of times, you know, if you hammer something in the ground to death, you know, it's going to die. You know, and I think it's important to stand up for yourself, yes, not be trampled upon, but, you know, things have evolved in our society, and I don't feel the least bit slighted in any way just because I'm a woman. I really do not.
With the same qualification, you see a man and a woman, and definitely the man will always get the higher paying job, and that's the only part that I say, you know, this is not fair. But since I'm a stay-at-home mom, from this perspective, I don't feel to be, I mean, I need to feel feminist. I mean, I am doing what I wanted to do, and I love it.
Abortion can be a moral, ethical, and religiously responsible decision. We are convinced that government has no place in these complex moral decisions. Women must be free to make decisions about childbearing according to their own faith and conscience. Case by case, people are in different places in their lives. Each woman's pregnancy and her circumstances are different. Forcing a young girl to have a child because it is what another person demands makes no sense.
Hundreds of anti-abortion demonstrators blocked both entrances of the Pregnancy Consultation Center on Bush Street near Laguna early this morning. Abortions are performed here on a regular basis, along with counseling on family planning issues. Demonstrators, calling their mission Operation Rescue, wanted to shut this facility down. The anti-abortion demonstrators were met by counter-protesters, people favoring the rights of women to make their own choices.
Not the church, not the state. Women will decide our fate.
There were no confrontations between the two sides, but while the protests continued, employees of the facility and patients had to wait outside while the doorways remained blocked. After about 2 hours, police moved in. More than 100 anti-abortion protesters were arrested for blocking an entranceway.
Well, anti-choice people make no allowances for any circumstances for abortion. To them, every pregnancy must result in delivery. The ultra-conservative, the fundamentalist churches support reproductive health care that is restricted by anti-choice doctrine, their religious doctrine. They refer to it as faith-based medical care. And these faith-based health restrictions are most frequently used to prohibit birth control counseling and prescriptions, emergency contraception for rape victims, tubal ligations, abortions, infertility services, and safer sex counseling about how to prevent HIV/AIDS and sexually transmitted diseases. These anti-choice people don't support these issues. When anti-choice doctrine determines which medical services will be allowed, hospitals, clinics, health insurers, and even doctors are forced to deny women access to basic health care services. Nationwide, anti-choice religious groups have used intimidation, threats, bombings of clinics and doctors' offices, murders of doctors and clinic workers. This would be classified in today's terminology as terrorism.
Violence at an abortion clinic in Florida.
He just went up, chased the doctor there, and just shot him point blank.
Dr. David Gunn was shot and killed outside a Pensacola clinic on his way to work.
Tiller, one of the few doctors to perform late-term abortions, was shot in both arms last night as he got into his car outside of his Wichita abortion clinic.
It took just 2 minutes for Paul Hill to fire off more than 6 rounds and kill 2 people.
A Canadian gynecologist who performs abortions was shot in his home this morning. Police say Garson Romales was sitting at his breakfast table when he was shot by an assailant armed with an assault rifle.
A man burst into a Planned Parenthood abortion clinic and opened fire with a rifle. Minutes later, an identical attack occurred at a second clinic a mile and a half away.
He was right behind me. He had a shotgun. I jumped over the wall. He was shooting everybody.
There are very few women's clinics left in the United States that offer abortion services and counseling regarding sexually transmitted diseases and contraception. There is only one clinic left in the state of Mississippi. Abortions are legal, but financially out of reach for poor women. Religious doctrine should respect and care about the physical and the mental health of women on these complex personal issues that carry lifelong traumatic results. The debate will never, ever be decided as to when life begins. I think that the very extreme view, which comes from Catholic view, is that there is potential for life in an ovary that produces an egg or in sperm. And to them, even contraception is not acceptable because it prevents life. So that, I think, is where the argument lies, the base of the argument. And as far as finding an exact biblical reason for this, some people believe life doesn't begin until God breathes life into that newborn, when it is actually delivered. So there are the very extreme opinions, and they do come and stem from religious doctrine.
The majority of Americans support choice. They believe that a woman has a right to make her own decision. Through the efforts of a vocal anti-choice minority, access to abortion in the United States is being eroded. Spurred by religious conviction, opponents of abortion carry out their mission on 2 fronts. One is through legislation, where state by state, laws are being passed that create barriers for women seeking abortions. The other is through clinic protests, where some of the most vehement attacks are being carried out.
On the federal level, the abortion issue is very crucial. The fate of a woman's right to choose abortion now rests with a conservative U.S. Supreme Court composed of 5 Catholic justices and only one woman's voice, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. This right-wing majority could reverse decades of progress. Chief Justice Roberts' wife is a prominent supporter of Feminists for Life, which is an anti-choice group.
When abortion was illegal in the United States, women resorted to drastic measures, and deaths from back alley abortions were common. In 1973, when the Supreme Court reached its landmark decision in the case of Roe v. Wade, casualties declined dramatically. In recent years, those opposed to abortion have been working to make it illegal once again. The result is a return to the fear and danger of the back alleys.
If abortion were abolished and Roe v. Wade overturned, the guarantee of safe and legal abortion ends. Women will experience unnecessary deaths and injuries from unsafe abortion. But the fact remains, abortion will not end, but the safeness of it and the health issue becomes a matter to be concerned about. Ultimately, the question of legal abortion would then fall to the states. And this would be a move away from the respect for women's health and well-being that has characterized previous abortion decisions.
I think that it's gotten to the point where, at least in my experience talking to people, nobody's afraid that Roe is going to be overturned, but everybody is realizing that it doesn't have to be overturned for abortion to be eradicated. State bans, little chips away at the law, that's what we need to be scared of. And people are not thinking that that's a really big threat, but it is. And I think that that's a huge issue for women because it's defining women's value in our society. To limit a woman's reproductive freedoms is essentially to limit the extent to which she is considered a full citizen. To put her life below the life of an unborn child is to take away her choice to keep that child alive. And when you take away her choice, she's no longer an American, because isn't that why we're all Americans?
Just 750,000 people share a lot of space in South Dakota. They share a single area code and a small capital. But lawmakers in Pierre have put South Dakota in the vanguard of a renewed campaign to outlaw abortion. Citing what they see as a more receptive or anti-abortion high court, lawmakers easily approved a sweeping ban on the procedure, one that declares that life begins at conception.
South Dakota's law makes it a crime for a doctor to perform an abortion unless the mother's life is endangered. There are no exceptions for cases in which a mother's health may be threatened or cases in which the pregnancy results from rape or incest.
You know, I think we're really pushing the envelope on that issue. I'm not sure that the Supreme Court is ready for us yet, but what's that old saying? There's no time like the present.
Veteran State Senator Bill Napoli strongly backed the new ban.
The most important part of this bill is that if Roe versus Wade is overturned, states' rights are returned to us to decide what to do about abortion.
Already, South Dakota is perhaps the most difficult place in the country to get an abortion. There's a 24-hour waiting period and mandatory counseling to discourage the procedure. The law requires parental notification in cases where the patient is a minor. Only one clinic, Planned Parenthood in Sioux Falls, offers the procedure.
Hail Mary, full of grace.
Often, patients must drive past picketers. No local doctor will go near this clinic. Democratic Representative Elaine Roberts is one of South Dakota's few pro-choice legislators. What's next, she fears, is a host of measures that regulate women's private lives.
We already have a law that says a pharmacist by conscience could refuse to fill my prescription for contraceptives. There is already a move from some groups who have worked on this to say that there should be no contraceptives, that sexual intercourse is for the purpose of reproduction.
Much of what she fears as an assault on basic rights, Senator Napoli sees as a return to traditional values.
When I was growing up here in the Wild West, if a young man got a girl pregnant out of wedlock, they got married, and the whole darn neighborhood was involved in that wedding. I mean, you just didn't allow that sort of thing to happen. They wanted that child to be brought up in a home with two parents, that whole story. And so I happen to believe that can happen again.
You really do?
Yes, I do. I don't think we're so far beyond that we can't go back to that.
The efforts of ultra-conservatives to ban abortion, limit information on contraception, and promote abstinence only all increase the likelihood of unintended pregnancies. Previous to the approval of the birth control pill and previous to Roe v. Wade decision, women had multiple pregnancies in their lifetime, 12 to 15 in a lifetime, and the death rates of women due to childbirth were high. Stories of discarded and abandoned newborns may become more frequent as young teenagers try to hide a pregnancy due to shame, fear of judgment if abortion is abolished. These are just a few of the nightmare scenarios if the constitutional right to reproductive privacy is lost.
The most frequent misconception about feminism is that feminism is solely about women's issues. And women's issues, in my opinion, is everybody's issues.
I think that the problem is that we're not realizing that it's not just about women. We are starting to realize that feminists, I think, when you talk about like really accomplished feminist activists, writers, Bell Hooks, Naomi Wolf, I don't see them at odds with each other at all, but when you talk about women, at my level probably, who are not that accomplished, who are not that, well thought out, there is tension, I think, and I think that results from differences between us. Bottom line, not all women are the same. Women come from many different walks of life, and moreover, not all feminists are women. So you've got a very, very diverse population to expect them to all be the exact same person with the same thoughts, with the same ideas, with the same solutions is, sort of ridiculous.
What's really unacceptable is using discriminatory tactics, or tactics such as saying all feminists are lesbians, which isn't really true and is sort of a silly way of making people afraid of being feminists.
These ideas about the way women should be and the way women should act and what women are capable of doing and not capable of doing and so forth and so on, they take on the aura, if you will, of truth. And so if a woman acts outside of those assigned roles or constructed roles, it's used against her. And that brings about a kind of violence against women, and I think that's a huge problem in our society right now.
Often with many oppressive systems, the forces, we'll call them right now, or the social currents or the social climate that keeps sexism in place is one that can happen silently. You don't have to talk about what it is that oppresses people, but often the thing that's the countermeasure to it gets played up a great deal. Okay, and so if you don't have classes on sexism or gender issues and so forth, then in the context of feminism, what will be referred to as the patriarchal system, the male-dominated, male-controlled system, will continue its male dominance while it recruits women to continue that domination of themselves. You see what I'm saying? Where the patriarchal system teaches men how to be sexists and teaches women how to oppress themselves.
There were enough women coming along, young women, that became professionals, that everybody kind of laid back for a while, if you will, and lost opportunities, and then so people started clustering into individual inmates. Some people were interested in choice, some people are interested in getting political power, some people are interested in economics, and so individual focuses were, you know, when you have 30 people working on 3 different issues, 10 in each, it's harder to get something achieved than it is if you work with 30 people on those 3 issues.
Well, divide and conquer is very effective. If you can divide us by our age, our race, our sexual orientation, then we're very small, tiny pockets that are unable to affect change.
I think that there's a difference between being I think you can be an activist, I think you can be a feminist, and I think you can be a feminist activist, right? I don't think that you have to be an activist in order to be a feminist. I think that's actually an important distinction to make, because a lot of young women who I speak to, they're like, oh, I can't be a feminist, I don't go like to marches, I don't go and, you know, protest stuff. And I'm like, you don't need to have it be your whole life to identify as a feminist. It just means that you have a certain set of beliefs. Would it be wonderful and amazing if all the people who identified as feminists were also feminist activists? Of course, that would be fantastic. But I think that we need to, you know, start small and then build out.
The way our government is structured and our political structure is, you know, our political system is structured where there are winners and losers, you know, and not coalitions. And so we have this idea that one ideology wins over another in an election, and then there's 4 years and that ideology tries to steal as much as it possibly can until the other ideology comes in. I think that sort of trickles down to attitudes towards feminism, and there should be many different, you know, as many different feminist organizations as there are feminists, and there's no reason why we can't learn to work together and identify common issues. We're so diverse. How can we ever agree on everything? African American women have their own issues. Latino women have their own issues. Working class women have their own issues. Upper class women have their own issues. Immigrant women have their own issues. So, you know, we have to make coalitions of these groups rather than walls between them.
You know, you're going to have a difference of opinion, no matter what organization you're in. And I think it's terribly unhealthy to have a completely homogenous organization. The best way to get the best answer is to have a lot of voices. And the more voices from different backgrounds, the more likely you are to get the best answer. You know, so it's challenging to work with people of different backgrounds. But ultimately, if we want true equality, and not just my version of equality, and some of what feminism has been attacked as being middle class, white woman, you know, certain age issues, it's, if we want true equality, we have to have diversity in order to come up with those answers.
When feminism was a term used to describe the suffragists, they were all the same. They were all middle-class white women. They all had very similar views about how to do things. Yes, there was disparity, of course. There's always going to be disparity in a group. But now feminism is huge, and it should be huge. And as a result, you're going to have to sacrifice cohesiveness. People are going to have different ways they want to do things. Radical feminists, revolutionary feminists, whatever, babe feminists. I've heard that term before too. The important thing is that there's a fundamental belief in equality. It's like within Christianity. There's a million different sects, but there's that fundamental belief in Christ. And I think within feminism, it's that fundamental belief in and willing to act towards equality.
There were a lot of women coming along, too, young women that really didn't understand the history of all of the problems that there used to be that had been already overcome and can so easily be gone back to. That's what people don't understand. We could lose our right to vote. We could lose the right to choose, you know, so easily just by being passive about it.
Every single law that's passed can be taken away if you don't have constitutional equality.
If you don't be constant vigilance,
if you don't have equal rights of women, then your Constitution says you're equal to men. Because remember that the first ones that come out, all men are created equal. And it's supposed to say women too.
As long as women are oppressed, feminism is not going to go away. You know, as much as there's kind of popular hostility to feminism that's promulgated by the media and by you know, kind of faulty representations of the history of feminism and so on and so forth. But as long as there's been the oppression of women, there's been resistance against that, and it's not going to disappear.
This is no simple reform. It really is a revolution. Sex and race, because they are easy, visible differences, have been the primary ways of organizing human beings into superior and inferior groups, and into the cheap labor on which this system still depends. We are talking about a society in which there will be no roles other than those chosen or those earned. We are really talking about humanism.
The threat is that while we've sort of come to this seeming agreement about the validity and the good sense about making women's rights central to our enterprise as progressive, forward-looking communities of the world, we're also seeing that the world is coping with unprecedented and unbelievably rapid change, sort of telescoped advances, whether it's in science and technology or in social structures or in the movement of people across borders, and all kinds of relationships that were given are sort of up for grabs. Relationships of individuals to community, relationships of citizens to state, relationships of parents to children, relationships of husbands to wives. All of these relationships, because of the rapid movement, have all happened sort of within a very short telescoped space of less than 50 years in many instances. And this very rapid rate of change, on some fundamental level, has made the world feel more insecure. And the world, as we know it to this point, has been run by men. And so that on some level, this insecurity is also challenging a prevailing structure in which men set the rules. Men frame the rules of discourse, the rules of political engagement, the rules, as Gandhi put it, of public life. So what we see is the reaction, on the one hand, we've sort of agreed that this is a global good. At the same time, all this sort of sense of change is being sort of condensed down into one particular evidence of that change. And that evidence is the transformed position of women in their societies.
It is fatal to be a man or woman, pure and simple. One must be a woman manly, or a man womanly. As a woman, I have no country. As a woman, my country is the whole world. Virginia Woolf, 1929.
That there's a misanalysis, and we have drifted the way black people have drifted. We've drifted into some other thing. We've lost the ideological thread, and that's why we don't know what to do. We have no foundation for what we're thinking. We think that, the gender issue is what I like to call a bourgeois feminism, the Gloria Steinem set. Let me make it clear, okay? So let's talk about people talking about reproductive rights, forgetting that there are Latinas in the world who happen to be Catholics, who happen not to believe in abortion and feel imposed upon in many ways by people who talk about abortion as a #1 issue for women. You have a woman like Fannie Lou Hamer, whom I consider to be as revolutionary and forward-thinking and as much of a sister as anybody, who absolutely opposed abortion. How are you going to denounce Fannie Lou Hamer? You cannot denounce Fannie Lou Hamer. So we have to decide, what is our agenda as women? We've gone far away from equal pay. Remember that part? There used to be people talking about equal pay for you don't even remember that, do you? We're not even having the same conversation. There used to be a call for women's liberation. But what we are doing now is we're talking about music videos, vagina monologues, Don Imus, thinking that looking at Oprah and Hillary Clinton as success stories, because that's what it'll be if we continue on this path, or we'll think that an out lesbian general in the United States Army is a success story. We got to be careful about where we're going with what we're thinking. We have to have an ideological basis. Do we really want to have women generals who will go and kill other women in Iraq? is that's not what we want. And so we have to get an analysis back into this agenda and get clear, because if there's going to be action, we have to base it on something. You know, we used to say in the Black Panther Party that the gun is not necessarily revolutionary because the reactionaries have guns. It's the ideology behind the gun that makes it revolutionary or not. And so it's the ideology behind this movement. If we're only talking about cultural changes, like, okay, I want to be called, I don't want to be called bitch, you know. Well, okay, I don't think anybody's calling Condoleezza Rice a bitch. Well, some people aren't, you know. But does that make, I doubt that George Bush is referring to her as a bitch. So we know he's not using that word, certainly not publicly. So now, is everything okay? No. This is a man who is perpetrating a mass murder and a mayhem and crimes against humanity all over the world. But he's not using the word bitch, so we have to be careful where our priorities are, okay? The point I'm making is that we have to realize that this arises from something, not from nothing. Relationship and this oppression of women doesn't come from nothing. It doesn't come from some little decision. And so the question is, how do we make the kind of fundamental change we have to make? Now, recognizing that there was a time when a lot of women in this country were talking about women's liberation, meaning joining forces with other oppressed groups toward the liberation of all human beings, not toward equality with men to be able to oppress other people. That's not what our goal is it? Our goal is not to oppress other people, but to talk about the freedom of women, and in the process, knowing that we represent half the world, okay? So today what we find is that as I said, we've fallen away from that. Since the whole question of suffrage and going forward to Roe v. Wade, women have lost our way, just like black people have. That's why I say you end up with these Condoleezza Rices, all these people, beneficiaries from the struggle, sitting there on the blood. They know that, you know, Condoleezza Rice, and I like to use her name because she's just so incredibly horrible that I don't even feel bad about repeating it, you know. What we've done is we've lost our way. We black folks have, and so have women, in terms of the women's movement. There isn't a movement, is there? It's kind of like a bunch of people running around doing different things in their little circles, of people saying, well, I'm an AIDS worker, or I try to help the homeless, or I'm going over here to do, and we do a lot of little stuff like that. All of us do. We're busy every day doing that stuff, but we don't have a cohesive ideological relationship with each other to develop a real movement in this country, okay? And that's what we have to get back to. Where are we going to go? Now, of course, we lost our way for reasons. We had, you know, not only did we have, after we can say the death of King, and after the demise of the Black Panther Party, we had the rise of the Reagan era, which coincided, interestingly enough, with the crack era. And that certainly had a lot to do with how we began to see ourselves differently and do different things. Women started getting little jobs, and so you got people like Elizabeth Dole talking about the glass ceiling, and we began to think in terms of the glass ceiling, meaning we want to be in corporate America and break through the glass ceiling. And that's how, we don't even realize what that means. We want to be corporate leaders, and we're happy being corporate leaders or being lawyers for corporations that are exploiting other people, the earth, everything else, and see these things as success stories.
I think, you know, no matter what issue you're talking about, right? You could be talking about workplace issues. You could be talking about reproductive rights issues. You could be talking about beauty image. All those things, what it all comes back to at the end of the day is that's exactly it, is that people want to keep women in this place. People want to make sure that women are only there for certain things, right? Like women are there to take care of men, or women are there to look good, or women are there for sex, or women are there to make babies. And, you know, we're only here for very specific reasons, and if we deviate from those roles, then we're punished for them. And I think that a lot of these things, and a lot of, like, you know, reproductive rights laws or sexist workplace policies, I think these exist to keep women in those traditional roles that make people feel comfortable. And that's obviously why it's so important to fight them.
My age group right now is interested in, number one, in getting our history out so that it is not dead. Because once the history is dead, everyone has to start over again. And I don't know, Gerda Lerner wrote about it in her book. She's a famous historian. She said men have always been able to climb on the shoulders of men before them and get ahead. But women did not have that. Every time there was a feminist movement, and there have been many in the history of the world, after a few years it was over, they killed it.
and they stopped it. So this is what we do not want to happen.
You know, since our country was, well, before our country was founded even, with Abigail Adams writing her husband John Adams and saying, hey, you know, don't forget the ladies while you're in there. And he's like, oh, don't be ridiculous. Why would we give up our rights? And ever since then, I was like, you know, we've been fighting for inclusion and for equality.
Simulations, words that have no reality. I think that the beauty of feminism is that it's defined by the reality of the people who are making it. Feminism has evolved because feminists have done different things. When women in America were upset with their roles in the house, radical feminism came about, and feminism became associated with the body and sexual liberation. 50 years ago, feminism was about suffrage. Today, feminism is going to be about the issues that women face today. In that sense, I think that feminism is always changing, and feminism is not something that you can just put into a box and say, this is feminism, and this issue, that's not feminist, and this issue, that is feminist. And especially today, because feminism is not just about women, it's about race, it's about class, it's about age, it's about sex. Every issue that we face as a culture today that has become illuminated because of the civil rights movement, because of every other social movement that's happened, has influenced feminism. That's what makes feminism so all-encompassing, and that's, I think, what keeps people coming to feminism.
You know, when you look at the civil rights movement wasn't just about black power. It was about power of all minorities. The civil rights movement and feminism, because they sort of mirrored one another during the mid part of the century, they've become the microcosms for the reality of equality for all. When you look at gay rights, when you look at, you know, the rights of people who have mental disabilities, when you look at the rights of people who have physical disabilities, all of these groups now have come along and used the template that was built during the 60s and 70s of civil rights and of engaging in the rights for people who don't have the power to actually engage for themselves.
Within the National Organization for Women, we actually have 6 priority issues, and in no particular order. There are constitutional equality, reproductive rights, lesbian rights, ending all forms of racism, ending violence against women, and economic justice.
The reason it's important, the reason feminism is an important subject, is that when any body is limited in what they can do in a society, it hurts the society for sure.
For me, feminism is always a material issue. You know, and it's always important to constantly raise the issue of those structural and material inequalities that inform the very way we view gender and race.
We worked so hard in the past forever to like build the meaning behind that word, and despite like what other people might think negatively, there's so much work that we've done. And to start from scratch, that would be like a huge undertaking.
That'd be a huge
setback. It would be more like an evolution of the word.
For sure. Yeah, I think I think the new feminist revolution should be to get the definition of feminism back to something tolerable.
I don't think it matters so much to me whether the title is feminism or womanism or whatever you want to call it, but I think it's important for people to have the philosophy that women have the same right to accomplish whatever they want as men, and that they should be paid the same for doing the same work. They should have access to the same opportunities. They should not have to be judged negatively or critically for choosing to be independent and single. I think that as long as we have all these stereotypes about the roles for men and the roles for women, we need feminism, and we perhaps need to keep the term, even though a lot of people stereotype it.
Even if they don't say they're feminists, you talk to them and they'll admit they'll never go back that they want this, that they want that and everything. And so you say, well, you're a feminist. And they say, well, maybe I am. You know what I feel? I always feel there are three kinds of people in the world. There are people who make things happen. There are people who watch things happen. And when things start happening, some of them join. And there are people who don't know things are happening at all. And of that group, there will be a lot, when they see so much happening, they'll try to stop things.
Some of the issues that bothered earlier feminists aren't big issues anymore. So it's time to refocus. And I think one of the problems is that the focus is going to take us out of ourselves. If you're not being violated, if I'm not being violated, if my girlfriend's not being violated, we're not going to be thinking about domestic violence, right? But so we have to take our sights out of ourselves, out of our own little worlds where we're comfortable and relatively satisfied.
And I really do like the idea that men need to be feminists. And until they are, the cause probably isn't going to do all that it needs to.